Hello and welcome back to my channel, Gnawing on My Yarn. My name is Noah and I am a self-prescribed maximalist knitter from the San Francisco Bay Area. Today I wanted to talk about 12 different patterns that you could make with one or sometimes less than one ball of hand-dyed yarn. The yarn weights of these patterns are mostly lace, sock, / fingering, sport, and DK. There's also no reason it has to be hand-dyed, but some of these would definitely look very nice with something that is a very rich and deep color with a lot of subtle or non-subtle variegation included. So more just sort of like what to do with like little bits of yarn you have, but not scrap projects. So the first pattern I want to talk about is a pattern for your hands. This is the Cocktail Fingerless Mitts by Heidi Heinrichs. So I've had these in my Ravelry liked for a very, very long time. I've just never gotten around to making them personally, but these use fingering weight yarn and they are done on US size 1s, 2.25, and they use a range of yardage from 142 to 197 yards. So they have two sizes, small and medium. I personally have kind of large hands, which is also why I've hesitated to make this. Maybe if you did it in a sport weight, if you had larger hands, it'd probably work out. Just like the little bit of difference would make it so it'd fit your hands a little bit more comfortably. But I also don't know how much stretch is really designed into the pattern. And one cool thing about this is that it's free. There's not a lot of patterns on Ravelry that are especially featured in videos like these that don't end up costing money. The next pattern I have for you is it's like kind of a cowl, kind of a scarf. It's, I guess, more of a collar. It's the Enredadera by Fran López. And Fran López is a designer who's going to be featured multiple times in this video. She is a pretty small designer, but her works are absolutely amazing. I think that they're all so gorgeous and lovely, and I'm really excited to make several of her patterns. But this one, it's a collar with cables, and it's just so gorgeous with especially like the two little buttons in the front. I think it's so beautiful. But this uses fingering weight yarn, and it uses 3.5 and 3mm needles, or US 4 and US 2.5. So it's just available in one size. It's available also in English and Spanish, which I know there's a lot of people out there who are bilingual, so that's probably, pretty helpful for some people. I think all of her patterns also come in Spanish. It says it uses 208 to 219 yards. I don't know what the little bit of variation is since there's only one size, but might just be accounting for slight differences in gauge. I love this, and I'm probably going to make it at some point. So the next pattern is it is a scarf, and this is something that I have made before. This is the Espresso scarf by Katarina Linnhagen. So I made this scarf and I showed it off in my very first knitting podcast. It is a fingering weight brioche scarf, and I think it is a pretty good intro to brioche for anyone who understands the basics of working brioche flat with one color, but wants something a little bit more complicated, just very, very simple increasing and decreasing. It's a triangular scarf with a huge range of sizes in it. So I did mine, I think I did mine as a large scarf, or maybe I did mine as a medium. But it goes from mini, small, medium, large, and the yardage varies from 131 to 875 yards. So it covers a pretty big range. I used one ball and then one extra mini to do I did a medium size for that one. And this is knit on 3.5mm needles. For brioche, it's I think you could even go down a fair bit if you want your brioche to be a little bit tighter, because brioche makes your fabric a lot bigger. So this is something where I'd recommend swatching just to make sure you're getting a fabric that you really like, because brioche can really change a lot depending on what needle size you do, more so than just regular stockinette stitch. The next scarf pattern is also one that I have made before. It is the Versailles scarf by Juilette Pécaut. And this scarf, I mentioned it before, but I've discovered it through Ninet's podcast because she was one of the testers for it. This is a really simple side-to-side lace scarf, and I made mine with two like mini skeins of fingering weight yarn because it's basically designed to use like half a ball of fingering weight. It's done on US size 5s with 110 to 154 yards needed. So it has like a short and a long version because it's construction side to side. It's about how long the scarf is as opposed to how wide the scarf is. I think it's actually was kind of hard for me to do because it has lace done on both the right side and the wrong side. And the wrong side lace can be a little bit confusing if you've never done that before. I had not really done any serious lace work like this before, so I definitely struggled a little bit. I also had to cast it on like 3 times, but I am very happy with how the finished result turned out, and I will be showing it pretty soon on my podcast. The next pattern I have is a collar. This is the Ruffle collar Leya by Natasha Gizamova. And this is done actually on sport weight yarn, so it's the first non-fingering weight pattern. And this is done on US 2.5 or 3mm needles with a range of 160 to 300 yards. It has like child sizes and adult sizes, which is where you get that variation. A singular 100-gram ball of sport would definitely be enough for an adult size, but if you maybe only have half a ball of sport and you know some small child who would just look adorable with a little accessory, you know, or you're a parent of a small child who needs to take, you know, Christmas pictures somewhere down the line of them, then this is definitely, I think, a really good option. I think it's very cutesy. I think it has a little I-cord for like the little bow that's tied on it. It's just absolutely adorable. The next color that I have is something that I really want to cast on. This is the Curio color by Lydia Morrow. Lydia Morrow is a designer who's been on my list for a really long time to make something from. She is extremely size inclusive, especially with shaping. That is something I've noticed about a lot of her patterns. She does a lot of really detailed information, and I can imagine that any pattern from her will definitely be very easy to follow because of kind of just her reputation about being really good about that. So this uses light fingering weight yarn, but I've looked at this pattern more in depth, and it's like you can do a couple different things. It has a more mix and match ability than some other patterns. The pattern says it uses between 348 to 558 yards, and that is pretty close to a full ball of yarn for fingering and a little bit above it. But the variation becomes there is a high neck and a wide neck version. So there's a few samples that she has, and some of them even have like an extra layer of lace with like a mohair or just other lace weight yarn. So that's kind of where the variation comes in. So if you have you've one skein of fingering and one's like half or like 3/4 skein of mohair left over from a previous project, you want to put them together, this would be so amazing. I think that this is the kind of pattern I need to see more of online, especially one with so many creative options in it. I just don't even know what I would want to make with it. I guess like I don't know what yarn like I want it to have like this, because she has like this bright blue one, she has this like soft pink one. It's like super cool. The next pattern is a bonnet, and this was actually in my summer knitting plans. When that comes out, you'll see it there. This is the Snowdrop Bonnet by The Constant Creator. So this one also has child sizes, which is what makes it also really like versatile in terms of yarn usage. This is done with DK weight yarn, and this is done on US 7s or 4.5mm. It uses anywhere from 55 to 200 yards. It goes from like tiny baby, so says the pattern, then to newborn, and then all the way up until adult. So there's really, you could make this for like anyone, which is really cool if you want to match with your baby. I think those are like the cutest kinds of patterns where you can do matching things. Tiffany Lou was talking about her typical sweater baby and how like her future kid, like they're gonna like match and stuff, which I think is just really cute. But yeah, the Snowdrop Bonnet has been on my list for a little bit, and I'm hoping to finally cast that on this summer as well. Now we're to our next Fran López pattern, but this is a beret. This is the Cristal de Nieve by Fran López. This is a beret and this is done on DK weight yarn. It uses 199 yards and is done on US 4 and US 2.5 or 3.5 and 3mm needles. This one also comes in English and Spanish. It has 4 sizes listed, but it doesn't have the yardage variation. So I'm not sure what the variation of that would be, because that is pretty close to a full ball of DK, depending a bit on if it's a light DK or more of a heavy DK. But I really, really like this pattern. What I like about it so much is the fact that it's so unique, and the lace makes a really beautiful shape. This is really unlike anything that you're going to be able to buy in a store. And it's not like handmade goods aren't already like that, but this is something that when I saw it was just like almost breathtaking to me, because it's just like, there's really nothing else like this. This is the kind of thing that like you wear and then people like stop you on the street and go like, your beret is so cute, like all the time. So she also has a bunch of other beret patterns. If that one is not quite your speed, I highly recommend checking out her Ravelry page, because there's I think like 5 or 6 of them, but those don't all meet the requirements of this video of being like 1 ball or less. Some of them I think require slightly more than 1 ball, but I would just double check the yardages and the weights. Then the last project that is under 1 ball, or you can kind of get away with under 1 ball of yarn, is the Nurture Bralette by Celine Feyten. This is a fingering weight pattern that is done on US 2.5 and US 1.5 or 3mm and 2.5mm needles. It uses 160 to 500 yards of fingering weight yarn. So it has a range of sizes based on bust circumference. It says from 23.5 to 53.5 for the finished bust circumference. So if you're on the very high end, you might need, you know, a little bit more, because I think most fingering weight yarn is about 430 yards, so you'd be about 70 yards short. I would recommend in this case, because, you know, it matters to be inclusive, is find a matching mini at your favorite yarn store, and do it for like the ribbing, because the ribbing, like, definitely not going to take that much, or just like the trim. So I'm not sure if the ribbing would be more than that on the largest size, but like maybe for the straps or the, like, you know, you can totally mix it in somewhere, and then, you know, you're not excluded from something like this at all. And yeah, I also don't know if it's easy to modify it any larger than that, but the pattern is also designed with negative ease, so it is more inclusive than just 55 or 53 inches. So the pattern is designed to be worn with 8 inches of negative ease, which, you know, if it's got to support your tits, what are you gonna do? So now we're getting into the couple patterns that use 1 whole ball. First one is the Sahara Sunset Shawl by Dvic. So this is done on US 6 and 4mm needles, and it uses 427 to 437 yards. It only comes in 1 size, but this is definitely something good if you have a like true fingering weight yarn where it does give you that little extra bit. And if you're someone who doesn't like to play yarn chicken, because that's like pretty close to the pattern recommendation, what I would say is basically find, you know, the last section, and if the last section has like a rib or a stockinette kind of thing, find like 1 or 2 rows you can cut out towards the end, and also weigh your yarn as you go. These will both, you know, help make sure you don't end up with a like just cast off-less shawl. But yeah, that's what I recommend when you're trying to play yarn chicken, is you can always, especially something like this where it's like, this is not a crazy complicated shawl pattern. It is mostly stockinette with some sort of like bands of some kind of very simple lace. Like, you can shorten the stockinette and you will be just fine. It's also what gauge swatching is for, so I wouldn't worry. The next shawl that I have is the Cape Town Portia by Kino Knits. So this one uses sport weight, and it uses US 7s or 4.5mm needles. It uses 300 to 700 yards, and the sizing of it is described as flexible. So it says that you basically can use any weight of yarn that you want, but the amount of yardage you will need for it will then depend. So the sport weight one is the one that uses 336 yards. If you were to do fingering, you could probably, you'd use up probably, 75% of a ball or something like that. If you have more than one, this is also a good option. If you have, 2 balls of DK, which is, maybe you wouldn't have clicked on this video if that's what you were looking for, but it's pretty versatile. So I would invite you to go look at the specific pattern description and see if it would meet your needs or not. And the last pattern I have is one that I would really like to cast on at some point this year. This is the Glider Shawl by Megan Macau. This is a pretty standard fingering weight shawl. It is pointed at the back, which I really like, and it just has like pretty simple lace breaking up sections of stockinette. And this is done on US 6 and US 9 needles, or 4mm and 5.5mm, and it uses 400 to 500 yards. So this is also a free pattern. This is the only other free pattern available in the video. I think the pattern is really cute, and the yardage variation is given specifically for people with different gauge. So if your gauge is a lot looser than hers, then you could use as much as 500 yards. So I would basically just say that, this pattern is pretty easy to also shorten, in the same thing that I mentioned about the Sahara Sunset Shawl. But, checking your gauge, especially as you're going, if you're not someone who likes to gauge swatch, then you can decide if you want to, skip a few rows at the end. And I'd also recommend using a maybe slightly lighter fingering weight for this one. I've seen some fingering weight that has as many as like 470 or 480 yards in it. So this is also an option if you have, a light fingering weight ball. But yeah, those are all 12 patterns. This is a pretty short video. I just wanted to, put something out and, give people some ideas of what to do with their leftover yarn. It's summer, and summer knitting is not for everyone. So, you don't want to knit a sweater because that, that's a lot of wool on your lap as you're working. But, something small, something simple, even if it's for the winter in the future, might be pretty nice to work on, especially while traveling, going out project, a work project, something like that. All of these would definitely fit into a small project bag, which I think is something that's also pretty important. So you're not always lugging something around with you. And, there's more variety to small projects than just socks. So yeah, I hope you liked this video, and thank you for watching.